Here in verse 14, it says, and he deceives those who dwell on the earth by the signs which he was granted, there's a key word, to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted, again, another word there, granted, power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Let's park here for a moment, because this is going to get into some interesting things, as you wrote in the book, as it relates to artificial intelligence and other things. But he was doing these signs. He deceived. So he's a deceiver as well as the Antichrist, no doubt. But those signs were given, granted. But now he's given the ability to give breath. It reminds you of Genesis chapter 2, or well, in Genesis 1, but in Genesis 1 and 2, where God gives breath to Adam, this inanimate. He's basically a lump of mud that looks pretty nice, He's got abs, but God changed the lump of mud into abs. But then he was nothing until God breathed into him. So what's going on here? What's the false prophet doing here?
This is the quintessential mimicking of creation. The whole transhumanist agenda of Satan to create life. They're never going to be able to do it out of nothing, ex nihilo. And, God, yes, in the Old Testament, mankind is the only created being that God breathed into this breath of life, this nephesh, the soul. And so this is Satan trying to replicate that. But it's not going to be real humanity. It's going to be this biodigital convergence, this AI that will not have a soul, but will be, as we may get to in our discussion here today, or certainly I talk about in the book, will be indistinguishable from organic, real humanity made in the image of God. Satan hates God and he hates mankind because we are made in the image of God. So he's doing everything he can to both destroy mankind, but also to marginalize us and make people think, as you all know, Harari says, we're just hackable algorithms, and we're not. There's no gender. AI doesn't have gender, yet gender is part and parcel to the image of God and man. So he's everything at every turn. He's dismantling humanity, God's highest pinnacle of creation, and at the same time recreating a fake humanity, a trans humanity that will take its place. And of course, they all believe. These transhumanists, the Klaus Schwabs, Elon Musks, the Ray Kurzweils, Hararis, they think they can do better, that they're going to, create basically God in the image of transhumanism. Famously, Ray Kurzweil was asked, do you believe God exists? And of course he said, well, not yet, but
exactly.
we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah.
So in your mind, this would be Sunday school, maybe 301. What is the image of the beast? That it's speaking. And then I think the image, if the way I read it, pronouns are important here as it relates, but it seems to be that the image of the beast should speak, and that the image would cause as many who would not worship the beast to be killed. So it's like the image itself has been given breath, and now it's actually instituting the death penalty somehow. What is the image?
Yeah.
And second part, is it connected with the Abomination of Desolation at all? Standing in the holy place.
Yeah. So question first. So it's so fascinating, and I know you've seen this too in studying prophecy all these years, how current events inform our understanding of possible ways prophecy could be,
good word, possible,
could be fulfilled, right? So years ago, I would have said it was through these images that are projected on screens, these holograms,
3D holograms,
and so forth. That seemed like a logical way that you could have these images of the beast. And by the way, some background first, if you go all the way back to the ancient Near East, images of these gods were a key way that they staked their territory. So they would put up these images, these statues of themselves all around the land so that people would worship the statue by worshiping them. So
coins on coins too.
Whatever. Yeah, coins, exactly. And so we're going to see the same thing in the end times with the Antichrist, except technology will allow them to be actual embodied AI people that look just like them. So you won't know whether you're talking to the Antichrist or an AI Antichrist, because they'll all look the same. It's kind of like today. You never know whether it's the real Joe Biden on TV or not.
You're right.
So, sorry, I had to just throw that in there. But so I think in that sense, AI is going to be very much out there. And by the way, and it's not like the images of old that are one-dimensional. These will work two ways. So these AIs will be out there reporting back through technology, through Wi-Fi, through digital technology. So they will really very much be a part of the control grid, and that's what it means to force them to worship. So you've got thousands of AI images of the beast, the Antichrist, out there. And in certain sectors of the country, if people try to rebel, it's just an instantaneous report, and then he sends out his goons to kind of round you up to the guillotines. That's kind of the idea. As far as the Abomination of Desolation, how do you see the image of the beast possibly playing a role there?
Well, historically, or I would say in my historic life, it's always been the idea of, Jesus says, when you see the abomination of desolation, Matthew 24:15, standing in the holy place, that the idea was, that they're going to put the image of the beast there, this holographic, whatever, or maybe not, maybe a real in there to be worshipped in the very holy place. But that would seem to imply, if that's connected, which I'm not saying it has to be, that it would be centralized there. But the idea here is, it doesn't say he was granted to give to the image of the beast, that it's a singular one that is centralized somewhere, that it could be anywhere the image is. It has this breath, right?
Yeah.
To the image. So I was just curious if you had ever, again, in your thinking, whether there was a connection between this and that. What is standing in the holy place? I guess I can ask.
So I think it's the Antichrist himself who takes the throne and desecrates the temple. And I mean, I think we see that from 2 Thess 2 and also Daniel 9. So I think he's sets himself up as God. I think the image of the beast, again, this is speculative in the sense of what form it will actually take. But whatever those images are all subordinate and auxiliary to the Antichrist himself, who says, I'm God, worship me. And so I think, they'll play a role, but it'll be more of a control grid. And the key is they will be under the control of, or under the supervision of, the false prophet.
Yeah.
He's the guy in charge, which is, I don't see a lot of full treatments of the false prophet. We all tend to focus on the Antichrist. And so it was really educational for me to kind of dig deep into this and see, based on his role in particular, how the stage is being set today for this, technotronic era.
And I think that's the value of what you've done here with the book, because, again, you're taking this snapshot. I mean, the false prophet, well, let me ask you this. Why do we call him false prophet?
Well, I have a whole chapter on the history of false prophets, going all the way back into early Bible times, and throughout every generation there are false prophets, and this guy is the ultimate one, the kind of the final embodiment, if you will, of the false prophet. But a false prophet, it's pseudo prophetes. It means someone. I kind of give several definitions lexically of the meaning of a false prophet. Things like a hypocritical prophet, that's what Bollinger's calls it, or prophet of lies, Exegetical Dictionary of the New Testament, a lying prophet, Little Scott. So, however you want to put all those together, essentially you come up with a guy who's telling lies, and in this case, he's doing so under the guidance of the Antichrist. He's kind of doing it as a subordinate of him. Any good second in command is going to do everything they can to further the vision and the agenda of their leader. And so he is out there lying. Well, what do we know about the Antichrist and Satan? He's a deceiver. Jesus says during this time, deception will reach unprecedented heights. So it's natural then that the greatest deceiver of all time, the Antichrist, at the behest of Satan, will have a sidekick who is a lying prophet.
This is a great segue because into what you've done here in the book, in that, again, we see this snapshot, and now we've been introduced to economics, about buying and selling, and this is one of the places where I love skeptics. I love people that maybe they're partial preterist or whatever. That's fine.
No, it's not.
Well, I mean, I don't agree with them, but I love them.
What you mean.
Okay, we'll say it. They're. I'm sure some of them, will be in heaven,
of course,
and because they have faith in Jesus. But the fact is, for this kind of stuff, it's all fulfilled. This makes nothing for them. It's been fulfilled somehow. But this is the verse that has been used by those that take a futurist approach to the Bible, to the book of Revelation, as evidence of a cashless society, of a digital. And so you talk about that in the book, and this would be a good way, kind of talk about how you brought this up in the book, because again, we're seeing a snapshot here that this is happening, but we're not giving the play-by-play. But what you're doing in the book is you're showing how the stage is being set.
Oh, yeah.
To bring us to that point.
Yeah. So the whole idea of all of those books, my 3 most recent books, is that if the stage is being set for events that will take place in the tribulation, that means the rapture must be even closer because it happens first. So, but real quick before I answer that, back to this text you just read, I just want to point out that there's a series of merisms there: small, great, rich, poor, free, slave. Those are figures of speech to mean everybody,
yep.
Like the
all
whole
categories.
earth.
Yep.
The whole earth will be under this control system. Right now in the church age, the whole world is under the sway of the wicked one. He's the prince of the power of the air. But in the tribulation, there will be an actual physical controlling of them. So yeah, I think what we see happening now is, and rapidly, by the way, is technological mechanisms being put in place that will make it next to impossible for anyone to escape the control grid. Now, remember, the church, we believe, will be raptured before the great day of the Lord's wrath, this 7-year tribulation. But for those who get saved after the rapture and who are alive during this 7-year reign of terror, as you referenced earlier, at the midpoint, that's when things get really dicey, and believers at that time are going to need to, as Jesus said, head for the hills and hide out, and because they're going to start hunting you down.
Yeah, that gets changed.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
now it's complete genocide, not only for the Jews, right, who are fleeing,
but for the Christians as well,
for the rest of her offspring, right?
Yeah.
So, well, let's talk about that for a minute, because we know I'll tell the story I shared in another environment earlier, but I was in Seattle last week.
Yeah.
And I needed something. I was walking around Seattle. It's been a long time since I've been there, and I was like, I need something for a trip. And so I walked into the Amazon store, and I was like, oh, it's an Amazon store. Oh, wow, I've heard about these. I'd love to go in.
Yeah.
So I go in, and there's a gate right there at the front, and I couldn't get in. There was a bar, like you would have, and I couldn't get in until I opened up my app, and I had the QR code, and I put it on the thing. And so I walked in, and then right behind there was other people, and it was just amazing the timing, because I turned around, and this other lady walks in, and she just put her palm, not even her, I had my phone, but I certainly wasn't going to imprint my palm on there, but she puts her palm on there and she walks in. Well, I was like, well, how does this work? This is interesting. And so it said on there, just get what you want, walk out. So I went in there and I got a few items, toothbrush or whatever. And I walked out, and I got this, boom, as soon as I walked out, an email comes up. Hey, here's your receipt for what you bought at the store. And it took it out of and I was like, oh, wow, here we are. No registers. No cashiers. There was one person that was in there that was maybe supplying some of the stuff on the shelves. Other than that, didn't need to talk to him. And as I stood there, I watched a handful of people just boom, in and out. I mean, it was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. Well, then another store we went to just to get some coffee, we hand them some cash. They're like, we don't take cash here. I go, really? I go, is this normal? They go, well, most of Seattle's this way. Yeah. But and as we've discussed, other places in China, they're already there, social credit scores. But here's my point. All that to say that as Christians, we might be forced into a digital or cashless system. That doesn't mean that we are taking the mark of the beast by being forced into that, because that's in the middle. But it's already here. And so as Christians, before the rapture, it might be full blown before we get out of here, right?